good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and a very warm welcome to The Artist and the Auteur, a post-screening discussion on Lasya Kavya, World of Alarmel Valli, directed by Sankalp Meshram. Please just give us a couple of minutes before we start this session. We're just waiting for a few people to join. Valli, you could start your watch party at this point.
I shall try. I shall certainly try, being the techno dad I am. Searching for notification. Akila started a watch party, but where is... Do I click on watch or what?
Share? No. You will get notification from Alap.
Share and then watch party.
There is no notification from Alap. That's my problem.
Don't worry then, Valli. It's all right.
Okay. Doesn't matter. I've never done a watch party before, so...
Okay.
Still searching for something.
Just in a minute. Just a minute. Huh?
Yeah, sure. Oh, there's a watch, search watch. And then I put share there, is it? Live.
No.
I'm watching you live.
Okay.
Okay, forget it.
Okay, we're live now, so. Okay, we have a bunch of people who've joined already. So very warm welcome to everyone who's tuned in. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. I'm really super excited to be able to speak with two fantastic artists, Alarmel Valli and Sankalp Meshram. Thank you so much to both of you. I'm just going to formally introduce this session and then we will start questions. Firstly, I was just sort of researching some quotes on cinema, and I read this beautiful quote by legendary filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock, and that says, to make a great film, you need three things: the script, and the script. In this case, we know what the script was about, and we're going to be talking about the script and the treatment with Sankalpji and Valli. In November 2011, when Lasya Kavya first premiered in Delhi and in Chennai thereafter, audiences had the opportunity to foray into the beautiful world of Alarmel Valli through the medium of cinema. In his note on the film, Sankalp Meshram speaks about how, as a filmmaker, his attempt is to examine how a dancer like Alarmel Valli can be a poet, a painter, a singer, a sculptor, and an actor at the same time. Exactly a year later, the film won the National Award for the best film in the category of art and culture. Nearly 9 years later, we at Alap in August had the privilege of premiering this film on a digital platform. Personally, I was just so moved by how the film is so classic, timeless, and contemporary at the same time. Also so relevant because in a world full of imagery and an overload of information and stimulus, so to speak, the film stands and embodies, so to speak, the highest standards in terms of values that we are perhaps losing sight of. Aspiration for perfection, singular pursuit of sorts for your passion, integrity and honesty, and inclusivity in terms of reaching out to eclectic audiences without ever compromising or diluting form or quality. Personally, for me, it's been an honor to have known Alarmel Valli. Valli, I take the liberty of calling her Valli, but I have so much respect for her. And I've had long conversations with her on the arts and life at large. And it's also a privilege for me to be able to speak with Sankalp Meshram, because honestly, without him, the film wouldn't have ever been possible. And his vision, really, to be able to translate these intangible qualities that make Valli the dancer and allow us audiences really to be moved and respond to her by honestly creating a work of art for posterity. So hearty welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Thank you, Akila. Thank you so much for hosting this.
Privilege is all mine. Okay, so firstly, Valli, I'm going to start off by asking you a question. You know, in the opening of the film, you speak about how dance is, in a sense, the truest expression of who you are. You talk about how all that is best in you is crystallized in your dance. Was this, in a sense, the premise or the starting point of the film? Like an invitation of sorts to allow a member of the audience a glimpse into your world?
I was not thinking about the title or anything specific when I said that. You know, when we started filming at that time, I was not very comfortable in front of a camera, talking to a camera. And so I asked Sankalp, I said, please, you must stand behind the camera and you must ask me questions and then I'll talk to you, but I can't possibly look at the camera and talk.
Right.
And the first question he asked me was, what does dance mean to you? And I thought about it, and it occurred to me that it is only in dance that I realize my fullest potential, that new facets, dimensions manifest themselves that I don't even know I possessed. And I'm not just happier, I feel more complete. And all that is finest and I think purest in me that I'm capable of finds expression in my dance. And I like to think that then the dance ceases to be about me. It is not about Alarmel Valli anymore. This aspect of forgetting or losing oneself in the dance, uh, nobody could have said it more beautifully than Bala Saraswati Amma. There's this wonderful anecdote which was epiphanic for me. It was in a small chamber concert. Balama was sitting in front. My mother and I and her daughter Lakshmi were at the back. And in some context, she turned around and said, she said to her daughter, how many times am I to say that it doesn't matter who appreciates you or who doesn't appreciate you? These are of no consequence. For finally, dance is the link between you and your maker. Unukkum avanukkum irukka thodarbu, she said, and that struck me so powerfully. So when Sankalp asked me the question, because dance has this potential to connect us to the divine. And I don't want to say too much about it because it's easy, it's dangerous to talk about these things without slipping into jargon. But all I want to say is that the first thought that came to me is that dance is my prayer. And I've said it's a prayer with my very being. And actually where that comes from, and I think I mentioned it to Sankalp, is that Raimundo Panikkar, the great philosopher and writer, after seeing a performance, he presented me with a pamphlet with these wonderful words, for Valli, who prays with her very being. And that is something which I cherish and treasure. And that's where the second part comes into play. And dance is my prayer with my very being, as I've come to realize.
Fantastic. So, Sankalpji, can you speak about the premise? Like, how did you decide, you know, aspects that you wanted to kind of capture and showcase in the film? Because there's a lot, right? Like, how does one crystallize?
The moment I had, this, let's say the initial discussions, which, that the motor and the engine and the inspiration for this film was Valliji's mother. And she told me, Sankalp, we have to make a beautiful film. And I said, while I said yes, you can imagine how nervous I was feeling, because you can imagine to take on a task like this is
I
a
know,
very, it's an onerous task,
of course.
and the creative responsibility is very high. And so what I did, which is let's say the best way to approach making any film, is to listen, absorb, and become a student, which is what I became and I still am. Because just having made the film doesn't make you any kind of an authority. Every time I look at Valliji dancing, it's like you're learning new things about her art and about her. So that's what I did initially, which is that I interacted with her a lot. I spoke, we spoke about dance, we spoke about other things, other interests that she has, and I can started getting a sense of who she is, which is this absolutely modern, brilliant person who practices a classical art. But for me, the most wonderful thing was her amalgamation of modernity and this very pure, let's say, classical art, which she practices with absolute rigor.
Right.
So one of the, let's say, important elements was to constantly refer to the modern and the classical, which is a theme running through the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
In her persona, you can see very well, like, right now she's talking, and right now she could be, anybody from India Habitat Center or somebody. So nobody will get an inkling of what a great performer she is.
Yeah.
So this amazing quality was the first, I would say, very important
Yeah.
element. And then, of course, the other question was, which is always a big question, as to what kind of dialogue can cinema have with dance
Correct.
itself. And I totally believe that cinema should not be a mute or dumb means of record.
Right.
So we need to, of course, have a, let's say, a very vibrant and wonderful dialogue between
Yeah.
so the question of how to retain the authenticity of her dance and yet not be, let's say, a boring record, but an
Right.
interesting record. So we try to do that. I think we succeeded to quite an extent. And as we go
Yeah.
along, I'll tell you more about it.
Right. Lovely. Satyaj, you mentioned, that you became a student. So I wanted to ask Valli a question, but I thought I should ask you about, how did you get to know Alarmel Valli? Like, did you know her before? Have you watched her dance? You know,
Yes, I must tell you this because, uh, you know, there used to be these art festivals that used to happen at Elephanta Caves
right.
long ago. And when I was a student in Bombay, it was quite by chance that I got a expensive ticket to go there. They used to take you
And
by
which year was this? I mean, do you remember?
This is 1988.
Okay, fantastic.
So that ticket used to involve, very interestingly, a ferry ride, watching the performance, and a dinner afterwards.
Oh, wow.
So, but I had, I just read on the, the libretto they give that there's a Bharatnatyam by Alarmel Valli, and I said, I've never heard of Alarmel Valli. And then she came on, and I can tell you, I was transfixed. I had never seen dance like this. The, the lines that she was creating, the geometry, the perfection of every move, and the perfect sync of every beat. It, you didn't need to know Bharatnatyam. You didn't need to have any contact with
Correct.
anything earlier than this. You just needed to see this. And I had this absolute epiphanic moment. At that very moment, I fell in love with her, I
I
must
can
say.
imagine.
And I kept that in my heart. You can imagine what kind of a desire I must have had.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The universe conspired
I
at some point
know.
of time in such a circuitous way to bring me again in contact with her. And so there was a film which I edited, which Mr. Arun Khopkar had directed, which was a film produced by Films Division,
Yeah, that's right.
which I edited. That was the first time I met her in connection with the editing. And
Right.
I had this, fanboy, or God knows, more like a worshipful moment
Huh.
where I said, I am meeting this lady who had given me, I would say, my first true contact with beauty. That is what happened. So that's how I met her. I met her in at Elephanta Caves first, but she
Yeah,
doesn't know that.
yeah. The universe really indeed works in strange ways, you know? Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that rapture I had, that respect, and that kind of, I would say, worshipful approach I had, is also part of the way I made the film. You know,
Yeah,
it is a very respectful film because it is actually the true position of my heart. Every time I tell her also, and I
yeah,
tell other people, I cannot fully ever express.
Right.
what I feel when I think about Valli ji, or even when I'm in around her, it is just a sense of absolute exaltation all the
Oh,
time. Yeah.
yeah, that's how a lot of us feel.
Yes.
Vali, so I want to ask you, how did you warm up to the camera? Like, what is the relationship that you shared with the filmmaker? Because while making a film, the filmmaker and the subject obviously have to have a rapport, right? So how did you kind of, develop this rapport with Sankalp?
How can you not have rapport with someone who is so completely in tune with what you're doing, and someone like Sankalp? But actually, I must mention that something which I think Sankalp knows too. When this idea of the film was first mooted, I was such a reluctant participant
Yeah, she
initially.
was. She was.
Ooh, and I've done this before, even in the film with Arun Kopkar, which you edited, Pravahi. I was so focused on my performance and being very casual about the filming that he one day said, you keep saying performance, but the performance is for the moment. This is for a lifetime. So by the time I met Sankalp, I was far more respectful of what films meant. Cinema. I loved cinema, but I somehow didn't, realize the great importance films have in archiving an artist's life. So when we started then discussing, and we talked about philosophy and psychology and films and books and music, just about everything. And it was very obvious that he was completely in tune with what, literally in the same stream of
Yeah.
consciousness. So that gave me a great sense of trust and confidence.
Correct.
And even more so, my mother grew to be very fond of him, and she had admired his art. She admired his way of thinking, and his warmth, which came through in all the discussions. So it actually became a very harmonious, interactive, enriching experience. One thing I must say about Sankalp Akila, which he has a great knowledge of the music, which is so important to me, and rhythm, because he plays the tabla, I think, himself.
Oh, okay.
What was fascinating to me was he was generous enough to allow me to watch some of the editing, but I saw him doing the Adiyokka Yugamo, Kshetraya Padam, Tishra Tirupate, so difficult because every word falls on another beat. And it was a long song and he had to edit it. It was from a live performance. And I was thinking, how is he going to do it? This is going to be a mess. Do you know, it is incredible that even those offbeat moments were exactly where they should be. So it is so seamless that it's, though he's brought those segments together, you can't see the joint. There's a moment where each time I take my hands and I bring them down in despair like that. And twice it has happened for those who will see it. From close up, he's gone to long shot. And exactly, you can't make out that it is two separate shots coming together. And for me, this he also, all of them had such a great sense of humor. So even the physical and mental exhaustion of the process, and it was very, very enriching. And Vivek Shah, whom we were just talking about some time ago, his cinematography, he had brought him in, and he came in because Sankalp asked him. And his camera literally anticipates where I'm going. And he was doing the tight close ups, and it's not easy, You can lose a person so easily, the face. But he almost, by the time he had seen me, and they also archived a couple of productions at the NCPA. See the Music, Hear the Dance, the first edition of that, and another production. So both they did. So by which time they were already in, you could say, in harmony with what I was doing. They understood me better. So
Right.
that when it came to Lasya Kavya, everything was wonderful. And I learned a lot. For me, I think the thing is, I learned so much during that process. And
Right.
that is thanks to Sankalp's generosity and his ability. He's a born teacher.
Oh,
No,
wow.
I need to intervene here a little bit. First of all, I want to correct Alfred Hitchcock, which is Alfred Hitchcock said, you need a script, you need a script, and you need a script. But the truth is, for making a successful and wonderful film, you need a star, you need a star, you need a star.
No.
Okay, I had a star on my hand. You just have to roll the camera.
But Sankar, that makes it even more challenging, right? Like with great power comes great responsibility. So that must have been quite challenging to kind of make a great film with a great star.
No. In this case, you see, I had a very clear sense of responsibility, which is not only because I don't know, sometimes Valli ji doesn't really fully understand what a treasure she is, and my sense of responsibility was primarily that I am documenting this, I am preserving this art for generations to come.
Right. Absolutely.
That absolute sense of this art and this level of perfection, how many years it takes for anybody to reach this, and for the complete understanding of the art, which in her case is actually a spiritual exercise. So how many people today in practicing any kind of art actually have that purity? you know it's almost impossible. So for me, that sense of responsibility was very much there.
Yeah.
And there have been instances of filmmakers who kind of go crazy with their antics with the filming, like they'll
Right.
do weird things with it because they think that they are more important than the person. But in
Correct.
my case, I totally understood that this film has to somehow portray the truth of what Valliji is, you
Stands.
know,
Yeah.
and that's why if you have a star like Valliji,
Then
all you have to do is just truthfully bring her in front of people.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I must protest at this stage. I have never, and both Sankalp and Akila know this, that I am anything but starred.
Yeah.
I
No,
can't,
no,
in
there's
fact,
a
this,
You don't know that.
no,
That's
I must tell you this. You said something about I could be someone from Habitat, or it could be. The fact is that most people, when I was younger, didn't know who I was in terms of my being a dancer. They couldn't make out that I was a dancer. I was most undancer like, and they would automatically walk to my mother thinking she was the dancer, and then be horrified when they realized that, the scrawny schoolgirl was actually the dancer. So I have grown up like that, and I have absolutely no uh, idea of myself as this star thing. We are artists all
no,
of
but
us.
I have a very interesting
I
anecdote.
beg to differ.
please go ahead. Please go ahead.
This anecdote is about, we were shooting in Filmistan studio. We had booked one of the
Right.
biggest studios out there,
Right.
and we had built a set which eventually shows up only as pure black, but it took a lot of effort to create that pure black. And of course, we had also booked the VIP makeup room for Valliji.
Right.
Now, what happened, for first 2 days it went fine, and the third day suddenly we found a lock on the makeup room. So I said, what is happening? Why is this lock? So they said, no, this room is now been given to Mr. Shah Rukh Khan.
Oh.
So I said, why? No, he's a big patron of ours, and today he's shooting. So there's only one way VIP makeup room apparently, and it has been given to Mr. Shah Rukh Khan because he is Shah Rukh Khan. So I walked over to that set, which was the shooting of Ravan was happening.
Oh, okay.
I told Mr. Shah Rukh Khan, I said, I think you should know that Miss Valli is dancing there and the VIP makeup room belongs to her. He immediately said, oh my God, please open that room. And so the room was, so let us know who the actual
No,
star
no,
is.
no, no. I didn't realize this at all. You never told me this.
Wow, this is
Oh
such an
gosh.
amazing story.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm seriously touched because the hierarchies, dancers come right at the bottom rung of that ladder. And to be very honest, what is all this about star? Because in dance, as I said, I shouldn't be Alarmel Valli when I dance. I'm not. I'm just any dancer. And that is why there was that very fine rapport between Sankalp and me, because neither of us has any nakras, or we don't have this mystique of I am so and so. And I don't believe that you can't be a complete artist if you set out like that. So let's forget stars for the moment and talk about, Sankalp and how he made this
Also,
film.
there's one more anecdote which I want to tell you, which is about her humility and what a fun person she is.
Yeah.
So,
Sankalp.
Real
and
fun
No,
person.
another
Yeah,
thing,
no,
yeah.
no, let's get
Yeah.
off this meme. Let's get
okay,
off this.
just
Talk
one,
about
okay,
technique.
because this is something like a trivia which people should know, which
Yes,
is
Oh
please
God.
go ahead. Yeah.
that we were returning. We had gone out to a food court in at Oberoi Mall in Bombay, and we were returning from there. And when we came down to the basement, we saw that our car had a flat.
Okay.
Guess who volunteered to change the tire? Valiji, you remember? Then you were helping Nayyar change the.
Oh
She's holding
God.
instruments and like she's trying to. She said, "No, I want to do it." So she is the most fun, absolutely humble person, and she totally forgets that she's Alarmel Valli. And it can be sometimes if you're around her, you might also tend to forget who she is till
Good. Very
till
good.
she
Yeah.
steps on the stage.
Yeah.
No,
That's
very, very good.
that definitely happens with me because I chat with her so much, and it's
Yeah.
amazing how she, so the star thing that you talk about, I think that
Very
really
embarrassing.
does. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Off the subject. Huh.
Yeah. Sankat, so two words really struck me, and I'm going to ask Valli a question. You talked about purity and you talked about spiritual. Valli, so the thing is, the film has a very calm, leisurely pace to it. It sort of allows the audience, and when I rewatched it again this time, it sort of allows you to slowly and deliberately get familiar with the world of Alarmel Valli, the dancer, the artist, the person. Was that pace also a natural extension of the kind of person you are? I just, I mean, I might be biased and know you, but there's a certain, like, um, you sort of take time, you think, everything is, there's a certain pace about how you live life, your dance, everything. So was the film a sort of natural extension of your personality in that sense? The pace of the film.
Certainly, because I think Sankalp has captured uh, much of what I am in celluloid in his film because he knew me well, and I think he has aimed, as he said earlier, to be true to the truth of who I am. So that is something for which I'm very grateful. But this leisurely quality that you speak about, I must say it is thanks to the environment, and I was remarkably fortunate. The conditioning that I had in master's class, and thanks largely to my mother, because she created, or rather, she deliberately and farsightedly, with vision, carved out space, time, and the quiet that an artist needs or a student needs to grow and to later on create. First to internalize the art and then to create. And that space, which is there in the film, which you see my dance area in the old house, that was to my mother sacrosanct. Nobody, once I'd begun my practice, nothing and no one could interfere or butt in. She was like a buffer. And that is such a gift. Today I look back and think, my heavens, if my mother had not given me that space, time, and quiet, inner quiet, how could I have functioned as I did? Because I just go there and sit there all day. And when I worked on my Sangam poems, the Anamacharya production, or anything, any new composition, for nearly a month, I would just sit and read poetry and allow those poems to percolate. And when they percolate, you become aware of, you start hearing the music of the text. The tone, the shifts in tone, the where the spaces are, where the pauses are. And once you become aware of that, then in your mind, there is a kind of blueprint, not just of the dance, but of the music. And when you work with a musician, that works so wonderfully. Because then you can have a much more textured, complex music composition. So
Yeah.
that would go on for so long. For me, if I may say this, I'm sure all of you have read Secret Garden, Frances Hodgson Burnett's children's
Yeah,
book. For
yeah,
those who have not read it, it's the story of this often unhappy child who comes to live with her uncle. She's shriveled and, crabby and unhappy. She discovers a key in the garden which was lost, and then she finds the door to the key hidden behind these creepers and overgrown wall. And when she finally goes in, there is this complete wilderness of a garden that's overrun and dead, partly dead. All the plants are gone, and but yet there is, as I said, a lot of weeds. The whole story is how, with the help of this boy who's close to nature, bit by bit, he teaches her also how to give those little shoots of crocuses or whatever the little green shoots that start coming up space to breathe, and then how they clear the dead wood. And little by little, as the garden starts growing, she starts growing. And the whole thing is a metaphor because finally she blossoms and the garden becomes a blaze of color and beauty and roses. So for me, creating is like that. It really is like that. You have to nurture, you have to pull out the weeds and clear out the dead wood. And when that happens and those little sprouts start growing, it's such a thing of joy. You nurture them, and then there is this beautiful gardens, secret garden. I was also an only child, so the secret garden resonated with me a
yeah.
lot.
Sankalp, we wanted to hear from you about the pace, the treatment from a cinematic point of view.
Yeah, because the film is that way. I mean, it was a difficult, let's say, creative challenge because you have all these performances which are in a way forming the full markup.
Correct.
But there is also the question of managing two or three narrative strands. One is the question of the development of her art,
Correct.
the question of her biography, which is from childhood, etc., how she
Right.
learned, and then there's a question of what is the film going to eventually culminate it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
what are the larger meanings we are trying to make, which are, of course, with Valliji, it's not only about dance. There's a far bigger agenda than just dance.
Hmm.
So structuring the film was difficult, and then linked to structure is the question of pace, which is you need what we in cinema call segues, which is you go from
Segue.
one to the other and you have to manage the tone, the change of let's say tempo.
Yeah.
So in that, I would say that there was a rough cut which I made to the best of my ability, and then came the star again.
Oh God, Sankal,
Yeah, okay, okay. Anyway,
no
but
stop.
Valli great, and Valli ji, I must tell you, is as great a filmmaker as she is a dancer. She sat with me. We edited it together, and there are
Nonsense.
so many things I can tell you specifically where Valli ji said, maybe you should do it like this, maybe very patiently and everything. And of course, it's not as though we agreed on everything. We had some discussions also, but in the end, I would say I was primarily influenced by her being, that lyrical, graceful person that she is. How can a film about her not be like that?
Yeah.
It has to reflect in its basic syntactical construction. It has to be like her. So if
Right.
the film is lyrical, it is because Alarmel Valli is lyrical, and it is
Yeah.
graceful
Yeah.
because she is graceful.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vali, I want to ask you a question which is not necessarily connected with the film per se, but the film, the pace of the film, since we're discussing pace, is very different from the pace of the now, right?
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
also I think makes the film so much more attractive. Like today, 9 years later, the film is even more attractive because that this is not the pace of the world that we live in, right? And it represents, so to speak, a golden era of a time gone by. And why do you think the concept of time is crucial for creative people? I think you may have spoken about it a little bit, but especially for dancers. And you talked about how your mother acted like a buffer, right? And why is that time, that time becomes a really crucial kind of idea in the film?
Uh, I think today more than ever before, this is something which we need to reflect upon. For me, you called it a golden age. I remember you said this is a golden era. It was a golden age. It was pre-info technology, and my childhood and early years were free from the dominance of and the domination of devices and advanced technology. So we had no, I would say we were free from television, from the distractions of television, of cell phones, of recording devices, and of course, blissfully free of social media. So, which of course we are using now, and without it we wouldn't be talking, thank God.
Yeah.
But I think all these, what would be considered a lack today, was actually a boon for me because it gave me the impetus to grow in a more organic way. So that growth was very natural, not a sudden, I want to do something new and I do it. So I think we need time and we need quiet, not just to create, but I think to be in touch with ourselves. We need to be able to hear our inner voices, to hear that interior music, because I think that is how we make discoveries about who we are. And this is a continuous process. It takes time. It's not something which happens overnight. So once you make those discoveries, then you slowly start getting to know who you are. Then whatever arises from that process of self discovery becomes self expression, which dance should be. And then it is true and it is genuine, because the truest dance is that which is genuine self expression and not just something that is derived or something that we're doing because it happens to be fashionable, or you have to be true to yourself. Right. Then the question arises, where do you find this quiet when we are being assailed by 100 voices? And this is something we have discussed also. How do you, when there is such a clamor, a cacophony actually today, it's happening to me, I'm finding it, that quiet, that complete uh, mm, decluttering of one's life. It's not possible because every 2 minutes somebody is, sending you a call, somebody is looking at this. And I look back and I think, my God, where is the time to focus completely and to forget the world and to be immersed in what you're doing? So I think it has to be done, and this is a reality that we live with because social media is so potent today. I don't think we could envisage something that gives us the means to be recognized globally, instantly. It gives you recognition, visibility. Earlier, we had to slog and slog and slog to, make a place for ourselves. So, but I think we need self-discipline. We need great self-discipline, awareness of where we're going, and then discernment, the ability to prioritize and then cut out, like Mary Lennox did in The Secret Garden, to cut out the dead wood and to prune, so that then we know what the genuine flowering plants and what beauty is. And we can focus on that. But it's very difficult, Akila. I'm finding it so difficult. I don't know. It's amazing how you do it. But I must say something, huh? Shankar keeps giving me all this credit. He says he was so generous first. No filmmaker I know likes to have somebody. He was generous to let me sit in on the process, and I have never known what anything to do with editing is. And I learned this thing he said about segues. It was magical to see how he placed, and he told me, one thing, he's a born teacher, and one scene must flow into the other. For instance, actually they were not shot in that sequence, but he managed to place them together. There's one part where I'm talking about body memory, that we should internalize dance till it becomes body memory. And for instance, the next scene comes and I'm talking about spontaneity, how suddenly from these moments something is born innovatively and in that moment of performance. Now, they were not planned like that at all. And yet he found and made those fantastic connections. The problem with Sankalp is he's too humble and he keeps, saying the stuff. He was the
Yeah.
one, his vision of how one scene should flow into another and into another, including that opening sequence, where we'll talk about later when we talk about the
Yeah.
music. But he
So
taught me
spontaneously,
so much.
yeah, Valli, so spontaneously, Sankalp, should we play something? Would you be able to
That would be
tell
nice
us?
if we can manage it. Why
Yeah,
not?
could you tell us which section so my colleague can just do that, Sankalp?
Yeah, I mean, after the first dance, there is this whole sequence about how there's rhythm in life, and then it segues into her dance. So that part and into her dance, both the things can go,
Okay.
because that's her philosophy of
Yeah,
how
that's in the first the
right in the
2 3
first
minutes.
2 3 minutes.
Those incredible shots.
The
Yeah,
first 2 3 minutes. Yeah.
we'll know. I can guide her once.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So just go forward a little bit. Yeah, after this. Yeah,
Ah.
just a little bit before this. Go back.
Go back.
A little back, little back, little. Yeah, yeah, roughly here. Start.
छोड़ दो यहाँ पे.
I believe there is a dancer in every one of us, and that there is dance all around us. An eternal rhythm pervades the universe. We see it everywhere. We see glimpses in the rhythms of nature and life, right from the movements of the planets in the universe to the most mundane daily chores of life. And in India, since ancient times, dance has been a wonderful motif of this cosmic rhythm and of life. I cannot think of a more powerful and exquisite symbol of this eternal cycle than the cosmic dance of Lord Shiva as Nataraja, Lord of Dance. And temples were not merely places of worship where people went to pray, but also centers of learning, where dance and music flourished as ritual, as celebration, as a wonderful means of sensitizing and educating people. Our dance is a composite art, and it weaves together many different strands of music and poetry, theatre, painting and sculpture, of philosophy. But central to this dance is the experience and expression of the spiritual.
Shall we go ahead?
No,
Yeah.
we want to see a little bit, please.
No.
all forms of dance in India are rooted in Bharata Natya Shastra.
Yeah.
I will for now. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll go back to some other excerpts from the film, especially the
Sure.
last part.
So like this delight, it never ends. I have seen this. I got maybe close to 100 times, but it
I can imagine.
always warms the
Yeah,
heart.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Sankalp, I want to ask you, stunning shots in the film.
Yes.
Could you speak about could you speak about just the shooting process and some special problems that you may have had, like ghungru sounds, creation of a dance floor, and hiring Filmistan studio. Just a little bit about that, because the little that we saw, the shots are just so stunning.
No, the biggest, of course, I knew that other shots are easy to take, which is you take the camera out and you start rolling it. But
Correct.
recording dance is a very, very, very difficult technical activity, which is now, for example, when you are either you can play back sound or you can record sound.
Right.
So in this case, she has to dance to a music which is pre-recorded many a times. And if you are not using live musicians, then what happens is that uh, we have to play the music back for her to dance to. And then but we need the live ghungru sound, which is the essence, let's say, I would say a very important element of creating the sensation of live dancing.
Of course.
So we had to crack the problem of how to do a playback as well as a recording simultaneously.
Oh, wow.
For
Okay.
which my sound recordist, Vipin Bhati, came up with a very innovative plan. We surrounded the stage with nearly, I would say, 10 very minute microphones on the stage to pick up the ghungrus. And we played the music actually very softly, facing off axis from Valliji. And so she had a real problem. She was not able to listen to the music properly, fully. She was just she mostly danced with memory, you know, and she was just getting a very small feed of the music so that we got a clear sound of the ghungru. That really helped us in our final mixing, because we had a separate track of the ghungru where we could increase it, and we had that sense of a very, let's say, in sync live ghungru sound. So we did a miraculous thing, which is that we played back and recorded sound simultaneously, which very few people do. Then even I can tell you the logistical problems of if you want to create a pure black, the black cannot be very close to the artist. The black has to be further away, otherwise you start seeing the texture of the cloth and all those things. So after doing a lot of camera tests, finally we hired the biggest studio in Bombay, which is studio number 8 in Filmistan. People were asking, whose shooting is this? They thought it's some Karan Johar film. I said it's Alarmel Valli.
Oh, you were Rama.
South की heroine है क्या? So South की heroine तो है. And we used up almost all the black cloth in Bombay. Because there was just no miles and kilometers of black cloth we used. Even then, when I came in, and of course my cameraman Vivek Shah, who was the DOP, but we had other wonderful cameramen with us. There was Mukul and there was Nayyar. And they all got together to solve the problem that this black is not looking black enough. It's a little gray. Then Nayyar came up with this wonderful idea. He said, sir, what do we do if we douse the whole thing with water? So we doused kilometers of black cloth with water. And so there was these two things happening. One was, as Valliji is dancing, I am worried, will the water dry up? And etc. etc. But one thing about Valliji is she was so well prepared that once we started rolling with all our technical problems, she gave wonderful take after wonderful take after wonderful take. So that's how we managed to do it within schedule, the shooting.
Fantastic. And how long did it take, Sankalp, totally, make
the whole shoot spread over many days? I think it's definitely more than 20-25 days of shooting, because we shot all over. We went to her village, We went to the
Right.
Casuarina groves, and we went to the seaside, and we shot in Bombay, we shot in Chennai, we shot at our home, and then we shot some sequences in NCPA, etc. So it's a big long project. It didn't happen overnight. But and then
Yeah.
editing it also took quite a bit of time. I would say a good 2-3 months, 4 months. I don't remember exactly how long it took, but
Yeah.
the fantastic thing was that Valliji was patient, and I also have this habit that unless it is okay, there's no need to unnecessarily lock something down just because it's too much time or something. So the
Yeah.
film was
Yeah.
made in the way good films should get made, which is with love
Yeah.
and care. That's what happened.
Right. Lovely.
And that
Vali,
leisure
when
he
you saw,
takes.
yeah, exactly. Vali, when you saw the film again now, during when we premiered it
After
digitally,
quite a few years.
after quite a few years, what were some of the aspects that struck you that you found really the most fulfilling, so to speak?
Fulfilling also things that I see, even starting with that opening, not the opening scene, but the scene where they'd gone out, I think in Bombay, in the docks and things like that, and they'd shot. And you know what, for me, okay, the first most important thing was that this is a very historic record for me because my mother has never come out into the public in her life, in her entire life. She's always sat in the wings. Everybody knows that. People would drag her out. She would not come. Even when they offered her awards and things, till 2 years before she died, she never accepted anything. And she'd be so reticent about it. My place is here. I cannot come out. So Sankat achieved something that was really remarkable for me because he managed to convince her. He said, I can't make this film till you are there in it. You have to be there. And she actually agreed. So we celebrated after that. So for me, it is my mother is everything. She has made me who I am. I am the dancer I am, whatever it is. And left to me, I wouldn't have made this film even. So, I would have been carrying on performing and not bothered about all this. So I think that for me makes a film very, very special because my mother is in it. The only time she agreed to be in it. The other thing is that the music, we were so lucky to have remarkable musicians collaborate. They've added such a beautiful layer to the film. Sankalp said, we had asked Rajkumar Bharati had kind of created a music scape. He had recorded with our musicians, dance musicians. But Sankalp then said, we need a lot more. So I will bring my CDs, you bring yours also, and let's see what we can put together. And I had brought Akare Subbalakshmi as one of her CDs, and there was the Lalkudi, G.J.R. Krishnan and Lalkudi Vijay Lakshmi. They're Tilanas of Lalkudi sir. And I rang up Suresh Gopalan of Charsur, and I can't tell you with what generosity both he and Charuma said, yes, anything you want. And in fact, they went so far as to say, look, why don't you take this music? This will also go well. We give you this. And they were making suggestions with so much of interest. And that is how the Jayanti Kumaresh opening sequence, the Veena, Desh Tilana, he suggested it and Sankalp selected it. And for me, one of those, that opening shot, when Sankalp spoke of segues, and I never understood what the word was. But, when he placed those shots, it was not a tightly scripted film or it was not planned in a sequential order. But what he made, because as a narrator of the story, how he wove that story, and each, there are hastas. So then the alapana is playing. And then at one point, and I was just watching the other day, and the hands open exactly to beat. So there is this ability that he has to bring that rhythm of music. So I say dance is visual music. That film, he managed to create a visual song with it in celluloid.
We
And
should
it
we
was
should do
also,
that. We should see the beginning of the film. It's
huh?
whatever Valliji is talking about. Let people see it. That just the
It was
first.
not, no, but the thing is, Sankalp, we'll see it, but the main point there is that It was not planned. People
It
are
was
asking
not
me.
planned. That is fantastic. When
Yes.
we read the music, how there is a divine, let's say, hand of somebody who is looking after you. We placed the music and it came in sync. It had been edited
No,
beautifully.
that is you doing the sync. Also,
I
you
did a little bit,
exactly
yeah,
pulled that there
but
and
it was
did
more
that
or less
here.
there. So that
See,
was
all the
yeah.
credit he's refusing to take. No, but such beautiful editing. No, he's being, we talk about being humble. Look at him, what he's
Yeah.
done, what he's capable of. And
Uh,
he was a narrator of that story, and he's made it visual dance also, because right through there is that timing, that pacing of the film and the timing. It has its own internal tala, which he has brought out
Exactly. Yeah.
so beautifully, with knowing exactly how long the shot should be, exactly where to cut one and put it against with the other. And so, I think that is a remarkable thing that touches me. And
Yeah.
for me, I was just, before you play this, my students, the most beautiful thing was, having all those days, all of them were there. I'd stopped for 3 years when my mother was ill, and but that at that time we were one large family, and those little ones are such delights, because I would tell them, be your best, because you're going down for posterity. I don't think they understood the word, but there's one little thing there, little kid whom you'll see halfway through, she's pulling up her pajamas and she looks so delightful. It brought back all those memories. And my older students, I'm
Memories, yeah.
so proud of them. Such wonderful students. And all of them are doing brilliantly in various fields, gone off abroad for the most part. But it was such a
Yeah.
joyous family. And Sankalp has woven the banyan tree along with those scenes. So again, you that wonderful Kalakshetra banyan. So though that was something which I really also cherished about.
no, also, just today, this morning, I was spending my most of the day with Vivek Shah, who's the DOP, and we were talking about what a great time we had, off shooting, which is Valliji used to take us to these dinners or lunches.
Mhm.
What was the restaurant? I think it's
Anna Lakshmi.
Anna Lakshmi. I think
Oh,
we nearly bankrupted Valliji by going out there, and we nearly bankrupted the restaurant also. But that memory of the joy, the jokes, the food, the warmth, and this amazing quality that Valliji has, that she respects every technician. She respects the cameraman, she respects the sound recordist, and everybody felt that, most other, I would say, people of her celebrity or caliber would not bother, who the cameraman is or who the sound recordist is. But she knew everybody by name, and everybody felt looked after, cared for, and everybody counted. So that's why it's a very special memory everybody has. The shoot was like one gigantic, pleasant experience, and then the edit. So the whole thing is a very pleasant memory for all of us.
Yes.
no,
It was
Yeah,
like one big family. We all felt like one family, and
yeah,
that
it was.
everyone was so warm and so giving, and such perfectionists, each in their own field. So you really felt part of a marvelous process. So you were a
right.
collaborative process. So it was. I think it was
Collaborative
very
process.
joyous.
I think we should see the beginning. I'm dying to see it actually. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see the beginning, and then I have one more question where we also could probably, I could ask you to point me in the
Sure,
direction.
sure, sure. I'll do. Yeah. Can we have the film again now?
Not the absolute beginning. Yeah, is it the beginning? Yeah.
That's right after the censor certificate, and
Oh.
yeah, it'll come with that Martha Graham's.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Sankalji, I want to ask you about the voiceover of the film. Sorry, Valli, you want to say something?
No, I was just saying that each movement, they were not shot. I was not dancing to the music. They were shot separately. But the fact that he's laid that music, or I don't know whether it's laying the shots on the music or the music on the shots. But
It was edited visually first. Then we placed this, and very interestingly, that moment we are talking about when in the
yeah,
single
but
shot,
everything,
yeah,
even the hands moving, that alapana, it was an incredible thing. I look at that and I think, my God, what a job it was that you did. Honestly.
there's another very interesting quotation that Mr. Charles Correa saw this film,
Mhm.
and he said afterwards, he said, I went back, I saw the film, and in his dreams he saw he said I saw the hands. So you can imagine what an impression it had. So
Sankalji, I want to ask you about the voiceover of the film, which is very, very poignant and powerful. I read just this morning about what Shanta Gokhale has written about it. And she says it is fortunate that Valli has a finely grained musical voice that she modulates and inflects subtly in speech. Her voiceover, therefore, merges with the music and poetry of her dance. I want to ask you what went into creating these moments. Does the fact that it is written and performed by Valli add to it a sort of authenticity, but also another layer of sorts for the viewer? So could you talk to us about what the thought that went into the voiceover?
yeah, because especially voiceover is again a very difficult thing to handle in any film, because it is like coming from uh, let's what we call the non-diegetic world, and it can sometimes become like a element that doesn't sit well with the rest of the film. But in Valliji's case, what happens is that first of all, the tonality and the cadence with which he speaks is so calming, and it kind of settles you down. And what is always it's an invisible part of what we understand in when we listen to somebody's voice. Is this true or false? And once you know that this person is speaking the truth, irrespective of whether that person is eloquent or not eloquent, but the truthfulness of the voice. Robert Bresson used to hire actors by talking to them on the phone, because he used to say that I will know the truth of a person from the voice. And that's true in Valliji's case, and you're right now, so you're hearing her. There is not one point where you feel that, oh, there is anything that is not true.
Yeah.
So that is what makes the voiceover. Of course, the voiceover has been written by her, performed by her, and I, of course, had some part in placing it, etc., and managing the pacing of it. But what is amazing is the truthfulness of her voice, which pervades through the film, which also merges with the truthfulness of her dance. So that's why the film works.
Yeah.
And the truthfulness of the filmmaking. Finally, it's about truth.
Yes, I would say that I made
All
the
of
film
us.
with one thing, which is that my rapture for Valliji's art and my rapture for her as a person is really true. It is so. That also obviously has come out.
Right.
I think it's a
What is-
joint collaborative process that truth has to come from, even if there's one false element somewhere, to
layer
take
of-
it. Everybody was true in that. That is what was so wonderful.
Correct. I'm just going to close this discussion with just two
Hmm.
more questions. Sankalji, when you look back, is there anything you'd like to change in the film?
Not one thing. Not one thing. Oh, except I would have had a few more lunches than Anna Lakshmi. That's all. And a little, I miss Valiji's mother's hugs, because she used to hug me. She kind of accepted me as her son, or I don't know what. But I miss her. I really miss her. I want to go and meet her again. That's the
Yeah.
one thing I would, if at all I want to do something, is I
Very,
want
very
to meet
lovable
her.
person.
I do. She was such a warm, such a beautiful
Like, yeah,
person. I cannot tell
very
you.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Valli, the film really ends on like a sort of a somber note, reminding us, like I said before, like of a time gone by, but also of a future that lies ahead that needs to find, inspiration from dancers like you. Talk to us about why you chose to close the film with that almost haunting. I think we should definitely play the closing. Sankalji, you must tell us with that almost magical, haunting kind of quality of a life and time that was, reminding us audiences to never settle and constantly seek inspiration. Like every time I watch it, I felt that it has that quality of like, you can't settle. You have to continue to kind of feel inspired and look for inspiration. Talk to us about that ending. What does that ending mean to you?
Are you asking me or to Valiji?
No, but I'm asking Valli. Yeah.
Oh, uh, okay. That scene was shot in my uncle's very beautiful farm. In fact, that Kajin, there was a sense of a passing era, because truly for me it was a mellow, golden, and kinder time that I grew up in, where people had time for each other. It was a happier time, really, for me as a child also. And that was a farm where a lot of the family would gather, and we'd had such warm memories of it. And I suppose all this, the light, the twilight hour, even the weather, the rain clouds heavy in the sky, myriad shades of gray, the breeze blowing, all that colors your mood. So by the time I got to that point, we were also all of us tired. We'd come from that Casuarina Grove scene.
Right.
And I knew that even that was going. After that, my uncle had sold it. It was the last scene. That's why it's so pristine. Nobody used to go in. And that all those trees would have been cut. So there was a sense of all this, of time passing, of, as I've said, of good times that have passed, and of an era that is changing. Because I truly feel that it is a changing era and you're in transition. And times have to change, as I've said. I'm literally quoting myself here. But I accept all that. But there was a certain melancholy. And that melancholy, what Uncle did was he put it towards the end, being the storyteller, the narrator. He then wove it together with the scene where I say that life changes, everything changes, but there is one constant, and there is that one thing which we always withdraw sustenance from, and that is our sense, our connection with the divine, or our seeking and our hunger for the divine. And so it ends on that more philosophical note, but begins with this melancholy flowing into that.
Yeah. Sankalji, what do you think? Should we just play the last?
Do we have time? People might want.
We'll just watch it 2 minutes.
Yeah, we should play that from that point. I mean, once the film comes up, I'll guide her. But it's towards the end.
Towards the end.
Go towards the end. That must be about 60 minutes in, 70 minutes in.
Let's Yeah, just go forward quite a bit. Yeah, a little bit forward. After that, after this. Yeah, from here. Little bit behind. Go back. Little bit back, further back. Yeah, this is fine.
Wonderful thing to be comfortable with technology. But I think there is also the danger that technology can become a crutch. Personally, I feel the system of learning that I followed with my master was don't even write. Go home and think about it. That helped me to understand the art in a far more meaningful way. There's a sense of melancholy sometimes about places like this where I spent some of the happiest times as a child. A well where we all used to play, some of the cousins used to swim. A sense of an era that is passing, a sense of good things that have evaporated. I know times have to change, that life has to move on, people change, can't all stay the same. Sometimes there is a sense of loss. I don't believe in narrow religiosity. And if you give of your art with truth, then I think the divinity that is inherent in our forms of art expresses itself, finds a voice through you. Faith in yourself can waver. Your faith in people around you can constantly waver. You may get a little cynical, disillusioned. But for me, there is something that remains constant, and that is that sense of bhakti, of devotion, that there is something beyond, something more beautiful, something larger than you, an energy, if you like. I find there is an inner strength that transcends the physical, something that possesses you, irradiates you, and which makes the seemingly impossible possible.
Yeah. It's like it really works every time I see this.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much. We have a couple of questions. We will. So there's a question from Divya Kasturi, and she'd like to know, could you please talk about when and how Valliji created the voiceover? Was it after the full edit?
No, it wasn't after the full edit. Actually, these were thoughts that she had, and she said all these ideas are there. So, in a way, I had read what she had written. She had not spoken them out, but I had the text with me. And so I had that in mind that maybe this part can come here, and also the kind of the edit was done to the voiceover. Then, of
Right,
course, when she read it out, we changed the timing of it. But the text, those ideas were already there.
right, absolutely. There's also another question which says, are you coming up with anything in future? I think Sankalji, that's for you. It's are you doing anything in future? So your next projects, upcoming projects.
No, I'm very happy that Valli ji and I have already discussed that now I am going to be shooting and archiving more of her dance, because
Oh,
obviously,
that's fantastic.
yes, yes. And this time we are going to shoot in either 6K or 4K with better cameras. Of course, the same DOP has agreed already. So, we are going to have his magic and plus other
Oh,
people who are her fans from within my circle. They're all going to be there. We are going to go back to Annalakshmi and eat lots of lunches. But more importantly, we are going to record more of her dance. I don't know whether we'll make into a film, but I take this responsibility, I would say, of recording her dance and trying to truthfully do as much justice as I can do as a filmmaker to that amazing
no,
dance.
absolutely.
I will do that. So that's the future.
Fantastic. There's another question, Sankarji, for you, which says one of the challenges is to use music in documentary. Can you share your experience about using music?
Yeah, it's very difficult because first of all, there's music in the dance itself. So in this particular documentary, there was a question of, is there going to be too much of music? because there's every dance has music in it, and then if you, when you're going off the dance, are you still going to play music? But again,
Right.
the question is, one of the rules, let's say, that we follow in filmmaking, in good filmmaking, is that
Right.
you don't create emotion through music. If you are creating
Right.
emotion through music, then it's an abuse of music rather than the use of music. What music should do is
Right.
to accentuate an emotion that you are creating already. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So in that sense, it's just a kind of a little support. So as a general principle for any of you filmmakers who might be watching it, never
Right.
music into the scene just to create if you are not able to create emotion naturally. So there are enough silences
Right.
in the film where slowly the mood changes, and then we put the music. And of course, again, the filmmaker Alarmel Valli.
Oh,
And you remember that time when you are walking through the casuarina groves, and we found that violin which comes in so beautifully.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
So
Vasanti.
beautiful.
jumped
Yeah,
in
very
life.
haunting.
It was just
No,
fantastic.
but you
Oh,
selected, you were
yeah.
so keen on that melancholy mood because of your knowledge of music. You came up with, you wanted that copy
Yeah,
of Akare Subbalakshmi. Very keen on that, I remember.
yeah,
So it was a, music kind of both of us love. So we had, and we, I think, um, there was perfect understanding on that.
yeah, yeah. And
The
also
Vasanti you loved also, where that was, I
it
thought
was
it was
all,
very fun.
when in a collaboration you cannot actually ever differentiate who did what and what. It was just like one creative, let's say, vision which we started sharing so wonderfully that we kind of knew what works, what doesn't work.
He
And
allowed me to share.
no,
Mm.
no, no, it's not like that at all.
Yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely. I really think, Sankar, you have to please take full credit for what you have done. I'm the subject. You
yes,
are the narrator. And so
to
we
the
will,
extent
I'm
that
not going to
I
agree
must
with
take
this.
little credit for it, but most,
Akila, we will go into an argument all this. How many years?
we are this mutual
I'm going to,
admiration
We
I'm
society.
have
just
to
going to ask,
moderate an argument.
I'm just going to ask, Sankarji, why do you think, as a filmmaker, it's important for films like these to be made? And I'm going to ask Valli, why is it important for young people to watch films like these? So, Sankarji, first, if you can respond to why is it important to document films like, lives of artists like Valli, for example?
Look at what happened with Balamma. There is one film maybe which is made by Satyajit Ray of, let's say, questionable merit.
Hmm.
All her great art is gone. There are memories of people who have seen her, but it's not there for us to see. Although she was very much alive at the time when cinema existed,
Right.
so many great artists and such great art of India has not been recorded or not is not available because nobody took the trouble or nobody thought it was worth their while. I have been, let's say, one of the projects of my life has been that if I ever get a chance, I leave quite a bit of my commercial work and I do this because this is really important. This is really important. I've made a film on Girija Devi also, which is from the same idea that before it is too late, let us get some kind of a record.
Oh, fantastic. This is
But
really
I would
crucial.
say that now that I have this opportunity of recording the archives of Valliji and archiving her new dances. I am delighted and I'm dancing already.
Yay. Vali, what about you? Why do you think more young people need to watch Lasya Kavya, for example?
I wouldn't presume to say more young people should watch Lasya Kavya. If, let me say rather that uh, each of us as dancers has a voice, Akila. We have a voice. We have to find our voices first as young students. We internalize the art, then we find our unique, hopefully, voices without too much of imitation. We have to be original. And then we want to express that. And this voice is born of all the influences that go into making you. who you are. So I think that in my case, many of the streams that have fed my evolution as a dancer have been music, poetry, literature, nature to a great extent, life itself. When you look around, and observation is something that's so important, which I've seen with my gurus. Even Keluchar and Mahapatra, my God, their capacity to observe. So all this we draw as threads. And then with that tapestry of the person you are is woven, or rather you come out with your voice. So this film expresses my voice, and because Sankalp spoke about truth, he brings his truth to it, and I have brought my truth to it. The cameraman and all the people have brought their truth. And so hopefully it is, for me, an expression that is without pretension, without any artifice. It is a poem that expresses what my voice is. So if young dancers watch it and if they are touched, moved, not just by my dance, but by what our dance represents, if they are inspired, and if they can carry home something which will stay with them, then I'd be very, very happy, because I think each dancer has a voice. Some of them may like it, some may not like it. So if there are those with whom what I say resonates, and if it touches some of them, then we have achieved something. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Valli and Sankalji. It's been absolutely, an honor to speak with both of you, and so inspiring, really. I'm sure, we have so many comments on our page. So thank you so much for, taking time off your schedules and doing this for Alap. The film is going to be available on the Alap YouTube page until 28th September. So that's 2 Mondays from now. So please do go ahead and watch it if you haven't watched it already, or if you've heard this conversation and you'd like to watch it again, because you might watch it through a different lens and probably unravel a new layer, please do that as well. Valli, you want to say something?
I just want to say something. I know I've done a lot of thank yous because I truly feel grateful for all that I have. But I must thank you and Ala. Honestly, I never even thought of this whole idea of this digital premiere. We don't think digitally. My generation, we are belong to the past. So I've not really thought about it. And then you made this possible in the best possible way, and you've had this conversation which has given us a chance to also speak about it, and it's made the film accessible to so many more people around the world. And for that I say with all my heart, and I know my mother would be absolutely thrilled about it. So, and she was very fond of you. So thank you, Akhila, and thank you, Alap, and all those who have worked for this and made this
the privilege is
possible.
entirely mine, Valli. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sankalji.
I echo Valiji's words. This is a great opportunity for us to talk about it, because of course, it's a revisiting of a film that we made a few years ago, but it really has, in a way, re-energized us to be talking about this. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Most welcome. Thank you. Good night. Have a great day for those who just starting their day.
Stay home, stay safe. Yeah.
Stay safe, healthy. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.